So in this video, I wanted to do a comparison of 3 platinum fountain pens. And I think this should be interesting because we have 3 very distinct price points. First up, we have the Preppy, which goes for about $3. Then we have the Procyon, and I think I'm pronouncing that correctly, but the Procyon is about a $50 pen. And lastly, we have the 3776 Century, which is about a $100 or $150 pen, depending on where you buy it. If you buy it gray market, it'll be cheaper. If you buy it off of like eBay, you can get them for $70, but retail will be like $150. So 3 distinct pens, all from Platinum, all pens I really, really like. And they're not really replacements for one another, but I did want to do a quick comparison. So first up, we have the Preppy. This is the Preppy Crystal, which means the body is entirely clear and the sticker comes off easily. And it's a $3 pen, all plastic. Really nice build quality for a plastic pen. Steel nib. It is a cartridge pen. I guess technically it's a cartridge converter, but I don't think anyone's gonna put an $8 converter in a $3 pen, but you could. Nice thing about the Preppy is that it clearly looks great. It writes well. It's really nice in both the fine and the medium. The extra fine is okay too. And then it can be converted to a eyedropper. So here, this is a Preppy and it's filled with ink. So this way you get a monster capacity on this thing. It'll write and write and write. And then, it looks okay. This is the old one, not the crystal. So you see all the stuff here. The crystal doesn't have that set of stickers, but pretty easy to convert. You just need a little bit of silicone grease and then an O-ring, and then you're good to go. And it's a really simple job and takes this pen to a whole new level in my estimation. So that's the $3 pen. The Procyon is the $50 pen. And this is an aluminum body, so metal body, metal cap, which is generally not something you see a lot with these Japanese pens. We move to a larger pen, kind of a cleaner styling, has a sort of an executive style to it. There's very few embellishments to the pen, but definitely it's very cleanly designed. And that's how you say it. I think that's Procyon. This is a screw cap instead of a pull cap, but it still uses a steel nib. You can see the steel nib is actually a little bit different than the one on the Preppy. It's a fair bit larger, but they both have that folded design. And they're not technically interchangeable, but you can see they're definitely, one is inspired by the other. Now, all the hardware looks similar, but again, you have the screw cap here on the Procyon. And it's a nice pen, pretty good size, not too big, not too small. Also a cartridge converter. I have it running as a cartridge. Nice body. The body is, this is called, I forget what it's called, something white, has a cool name, but has held up well. Has a little chip here and there, which tends to happen, but again, really nice looking pen, fun to use. It has that steel nib. I like Platinum's steel nibs, so it's not a big downside for me. But these pens don't tend to go on sale. They're pretty hard to find used, so you're probably spending about $50 on one of these. And it comes in a bunch of great colors. So I have it in the white, but you could buy it in like the sea blue or deep blue, whatever, and a citron. It really does look good. Lastly, we have Platinum, I guess it's the Flagship. It's their most popular gold nib pen, and this is called the 3776 Century. I did a full review on this. I went on for some time, so you should check that out if you want a really deep coverage of it. But this is the Pilot Custom 74 or Sailor 1911 competitor, and it's a great pen. It is a gold nib pen. Let's see if there you go. Gold nib pen, 14K, good size nib, all plastic or resin body, and clearly a good looking pen. It has a slip and seal cap. So once you tighten this down, it really locks in. And this pen, you could pick it up in a month. I've tested this, and it will write perfectly, depending on your ink, but it'll write perfectly as soon as you pick it up. Nice gold hardware. It is available in a silver colored hardware, the rhodium, but I prefer it in gold. This pen is also a cartridge converter. So again, for the sake of this comparison, I have them all running as cartridges. Usually I would have a converter in this, just because I have them lying around, I guess. And just on the pricing, so this pen probably retails for about $150 if you're buying it from an authorized dealer. You could buy them on Amazon and eBay, new from Japan, for like $70, $80, like really fantastic prices for what you're getting, but you're not gonna have any sort of warranty there. I haven't needed one. They tend to come in excellent condition. I've bought a few, but you know, kind of buyer beware type thing. So that is the overview, and now I wanted to, sorry about that, get into the comparison. All the pens are roughly the same size. You're not getting too much more pen for your money as you spend more. I would say the Procyon is actually the biggest of the bunch, but the 3776 Century is very close to it. The Preppy is not a small pen, but it's smaller than the other two. Platinum has another pen that's a little bit larger than the Century called the President, but it's not very popular. And you're going to spend at least another $50 or $60 to get what is essentially a very similar pen to this, but with an 18K gold nib. Taking the cap off, we could see some differences start to appear. Obviously, the higher end ones have screw caps, which is nice, especially on a pen at this $50 level. It has a screw cap, which is good. Platinum has a pen called the Balance and called the Cool, which are kind of in between these two, but they're not very popular here in the US. So I'll save talking about that for another video in the future. I have it somewhere around. So now you see the pens, again, fairly similar in size, but some differences start to appear. For instance, the Preppy has a very long section where these two both have very small grip sections, and the difference is largely made up by the threading. So if I were to line these up at the base, you could see these two on the right, the Procyon and the 3776 Century, have very similar sections, but the Procyon has more threading. I don't know if it's not coarser because the caps are actually interchangeable, but it is definitely higher up. And then you have a very long section here because it is that push-on cap. From a nib standpoint, you could see how big the difference is. With the Preppy on the left, it's a very small steel nib. Then you have the Procyon on the right. It's essentially the same nib. Maybe it has a little bit more flex and a little bit more character to it, but it's a very similar nib. And then lastly, you have the 3776 Century with a larger nib. Obviously, it's kind of has more flair to it. It has some more engraving on it. It says 3776 and Platinum logo 14K. This one I have in the broad, which I really like, and then at 585, which just means 14K. So that is the difference as far as the nibs go. They're all cartridge converters. I find them all to be comfortable. I think the Preppy, it just feels nice to me. The Procyon is probably my least favorite to hold. It has a lot of prominent threading. It's not sharp or anything, but it just feels prominent, and there's a lot of steps here. The 3776 Century, you don't really feel the threading as much, and the step down is very light to me. You barely can tell it's there. So I like this pen a lot, even though unposted, it's rather small. Not tiny, it's like the size of the pens in its class, but it's not a big pen. Posting. They all post quite nicely. And I'm gonna line up the back cap cap now. Pretty similar in size. The main difference you would see here is that the two cheaper pens have blunt ends, whereas the 3776 has the torpedo shape or cigar shape, whatever you want to call it. So that makes a little bit of a difference, but they're fairly similar overall. I like the 3776 posted occasionally. I find it to be a little bit back heavy, but I will use it posted now and then. The other two I would never use posted. This pen, to me, posted is just too heavy, throws off the balance. And then the Preppy, I don't know, it just never occurs to me to post a $3 pen. Usually I'm using this for quick note-taking. Quickly wanted to get into the writing, and this is hard to do a comparison because it's not apples to apples, obviously, and not only because they're different pen classes, like that's the point of this video, but because I happen to have the 3776 Century in a broad, the Procyon in a medium, and then Preppy's in both fine and medium. And then the 14K nib, there's a big selection of these. It even makes a music nib, so looking for the equivalent in the Procyon and the steel nib it's very difficult to do, and it requires more pens than I own. So sorry about that. So I'll do what I can. I'm using stock ink for everything except for the Preppy medium, and that's using like a Kuragura, Kuragua, I forget what that's called, the Sailor pigmented ink. Kuragua, I'm blanking on it. But yeah, these three are stock platinum inks, which I like, and they're coming out of the cartridge, so you're not gonna get thrown off there. I really like this broad. To me, this is Platinum's best nib. It's just a great writer, has a lot of feedback, but a lot of ink too. Not super ink, it's like a good, super generous, but it's like a nice medium. The Procyon medium to me writes nicely, but is a drier writing than the gold nib. So obviously this is broad versus medium, but it is definitely a drier medium. And then the Preppy fine to me is a really great fine, very consistent, like shockingly consistent if you're using the right ink, but it's not as much fun to use as the more expensive nibs. And now we'll actually get into the writing. We have a Platinum 3776. And sometimes they have the number sign here. This is that fancy new Lamy paper that I recently did a video on. I love how this pen writes. This is probably my go-to gold nib fountain pen these days, and has been for over a year now. I just really like the broad. I think it's just the right amount for me. Being a lefty, I really appreciate the extra ink that it puts down. So I'm always pushing, and that's just typical of the way a lefty writes. The broad is very nice, but there's a nice amount of feedback to it, and that's distinctive of the Platinum. Again, out of the nibs, this is far and away the best. I really can't recommend this one highly enough for the certain type of writer. The Procyon medium to me is a nice day-to-day nib, good note taker. Definitely less fun to write with. It's a little bit dry. I find that it sort of skates sometimes, and it just like the ink just doesn't get put down. And I think this one probably needs to be tweaked a little bit, because it has some miles on it, but overall I found this to be a drier medium and fun to use, better on a coarser paper than the gold nibs. It has more, to me, more line variation to it than the nib on the Preppy, and I think that's just a function of it being longer. So it could get a little bit more, not even flex to it, just a little bit more bend there and have a little bit more personality. And I think it comes down on the page as you're writing. Again, it does, to me, need to be tweaked. But you see more color variation in this than you would in the Preppy. It just got more character to it. And lastly, the Preppy. Again, keep in mind this is the fine. We'll move over to the medium in a minute. It's a good fine, especially with the stock ink. It's very reliable, has a nice amount of feedback, but it's very consistent. Basically no line variation here and limited really character to it. This is just a pen designed to write, and that's it. As the eyedropper, clearly it is a little bit different. And again, this is the medium, so it'll be a better comparison. So medium. And look at this Preppy medium. This thing really puts down a lot of ink, and it's a lot of fun to use, but you're essentially looking at something a lot closer to a broad. And I like it, especially if you tweak the nib a little bit, but you have to know what you're getting into because it can be a bit much to do for like kind of daily note taking. I like it, and it's keep in mind the broad is the medium is the 0.5 millimeter. The fine will be the 0.3. So I like the Preppy a whole lot. For $3, it's pretty much to me the best pen you could buy, but you got to know what you're getting into. So that should cover the comparison. I did a review on unsharpened.com about it, so check that out. I really like all these pens. Hopefully this will help you choose between them. If you're confused or you don't know what to do, skip the Procyon. It doesn't have to be owned. It's fun for platinum lovers, but that's it. The Preppy to me is a must own. This is a fantastic pen for $3. It's a complete no-brainer. And the Platinum 377 6th Century remains my favorite 14K gold nib. So highly recommended, and look for a deal. You could find them used all day long on eBay for some great prices. Or spend a little bit more money, you could buy it for, $180, something like that, which is really a great deal. So that about covers it. Sorry this went on so long. Thanks for watching.